back when that trailer came out. They brought out Sigourney Weaver, and they said to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. They were really ahead of the curve.
You have interrupted a citywide investigation.
Jessica Jones, stop talking. I'm the immortal Iron Fist.
You what?
So get your shit together.
The more connections you have, the easier it will be to break you.
You look like an idiot.
It's your scarf.
Bulletproof, blind ninja, whatever it is you are.
Classy.
Hello.
The first 2 episodes of The Defenders, we essentially continue on from where all the other shows left off. Matt is dealing with the death of Elektra, as well as trying to leave Daredevil behind and fully commit to a life as Matt Murdock, the lawyer. Jessica is coping with being thrown back into the limelight after Kilgrave. Luke is finishing up his prison sentence, and Danny is hunting down members of The Hand who left Kunlun in ruins. Ashley Clarkson... Wait. No. After this, Ashley Clarkson would go on to direct another Marvel property, Madam Web.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
Shut up!
The crazy thing is, you can see similarities in both of these, except here, it works wonders. And then Madam Web, I don't know, just don't even worry about it. Every episode here is directed so well, and Marco Ramirez is the showrunner for the series who also worked on Daredevil. I adore the look of this show and its use of lighting, referring to each individual character and how they all cross over. It's visually incredible the whole way through, and it does feel like worlds colliding and different lives crashing together. As everyone continues with their lives, we see the seeds that will slowly grow into a wider plotline that eventually converges with them all together. Every character essentially appears to be at their lowest points at the start of here. They're all struggling with their own livelihoods, with something unknown on the horizon. Something building that is bigger than what they can cope with alone. There's a really eerie sense of tension growing until New York is hit with a freak earthquake, causing mass injury, damage, and panic. Of course, it's not that simple though, as it's The Hand, led by Alexandra, played by Sigourney Weaver, who is great in the role, with Elektra brought back by her side. Alexandra has a really strong presence in this show. Whilst a lot of my problems do lie with The Hand, I think she's a great introduction. She demands attention and she portrays a woman who's clearly experienced so much, but does it in such a casual manner, in a way that feels truly authentic to someone who has lived so many lifetimes. She has gained so much power over this time, and one of my favourite things about her inclusion and the usage of The Hand is the correlation it really brings to class. It's always been upon a discussion in a lot of these shows, but whenever we see members of The Hand, they are normally in high skyscrapers looking down, in incredibly clean and pearly white buildings. Alexandra is almost always wearing high-end, white, polished, posh clothing, surrounded by white walls, and it really presents her status as she believes she can look down on those beneath her. Those with the backgrounds like our protagonists to her are insignificant. People pass away, cities fall, but these characters have not. They have lived through all of that, and so they think they have earned that position to look down on such people. They're framed on a ground level, so down to earth with the grittiness and the harshness, but a genuine feel, as opposed to The Hand believing they're above everything due to how long they've lived, and that's why a city falling is nothing, but then their humanity is kind of artificial. So the first episode ends with this earthquake, and the last thing we see is Matt attempting to fight the urge to go and help. But we know Matt by now. The next episode opens in a brilliant camera move to show Matt hearing the chaos with red lights overshadowing, presenting the devil in him and how strong it is despite his attempts to leave it behind. Just as he was about to go back inside, the moment he hears a gun pulled on someone, he gives in and we get a great action scene, ending with the crook asking Matt who he is, and as he fails to give an answer, walks into the red smoke behind him, signifying how he really is in an identity crisis right now and that he couldn't fight it off. Matt, at the start of Defenders, has tried to course correct so heavily from the end of Season 2 that he kind of done it too much, and I will talk about this in a bit, but Matt needs a balance, and that is one of the best things about Daredevil, the fact that he can never really find that, as opposed to the end of season 2, where the downfall of Daredevil was because Matt fully committed to that by the final episode. Now that didn't work out, he believes he has to go the other way and fully commit to Matt. But that's also not true to himself. So I've got to talk about the action, because all of these shows, bar season 1 of Iron Fist, have incredible action. Much better than really anything in any Avengers movie. It's always lit so well and feels shot genuinely interestingly and effectively. It feels hard hitting. It feels like every punch is felt on both ends. People get tired, they struggle, they really drag themselves through, and you see that a lot in Daredevil. And it really needs no praise because it's been praised to death, and deservedly. But we all know how incredible the one-shot action scenes are, and there's some truly great stuff in The Defenders too. Colleen brings up to Danny about bringing in help from the outside, as they're starting to realise how big their issues really are. And after having their encounter with the crazy ninja bitch Elektra at the start of the last episode, they realise maybe they can't do it alone. We learn more of the Hand and how they're chasing immortality, and that Alexandra is actually now dying. They've ran out of the substance that they use to propel their lives. So she's on the brink of death and more desperate than ever, and forcing the Hand to accelerate their plans in acquiring the substance.
The substance.
No, not that one. Again, it really shows the upper class nature of these guys, thinking they're above the laws of nature. The luxury for them, and they claim future generations, is worth the harm of everyone they consider beneath them. On Luke Cage's side of things, he's looking into this kid who's ended up in some shady business, and he's discovering the Hand for the first time. The kid Cole is just on the streets of Harlem trying to earn a little bit of money, just anything that he can scrape by. So it's a warehouse job, some kind of cleanup for this company that he doesn't know about. Obviously, we kind of know it's the Hand. Danny shows up at this warehouse, throws hands first, asking questions later. And that's exactly when Luke shows up. I love how this gives the two perceptions of both of these two characters and how different they are based on their experience in the world. Danny has tunnel vision on the Hand and is consumed with guilt and using violence to kind of take that out. He's desperate to find answers and justice to make amends himself for the guilt that he feels. And this kid is helping the Hand since they're so widespread, and so Danny is inconsiderate of the individual circumstances of everyone involved and just, as I say, tunnel vision, taking them all out. But Luke knows the kid, brings that different perspective that he's not here with malicious intent. So showing up to just see Danny beating on these guys desperate for any bit of money to scrape by, of course Luke can't allow that. So both of their approaches totally clash. The Heroes for Hire are the first two of our core four that meet each other, and it leads to a brilliant scene showcasing both of their abilities. Cage being this immovable object never gets old, just Danny trying to throw every karate move that he knows, hoping to do anything to Luke, and he just doesn't move at all, and Luke can just tap him and Danny's immediately moved to the floor, until Danny lights his fist up, which gives us a great mirrored moment to the shot in the first episode of Luke Cage where the guy breaks his wrist. Elsewhere, Jessica is being held for questioning as she's been investigating this father who's kind of vanished and who threatened her, and she took evidence from a crime scene, and that's where Matt comes in, entering through the red door into the blues of this room, giving maximum aura points as he prepares to help her case. I really like how the show takes the first two episodes to build their meeting. There are pacing issues big time, but I do like that it kind of starts from all four of the shows, we're just seeing them play out, and now they're starting to converge, and I think that really allows space for the characters to breathe and develop and get engaged. All of these characters and their stories are overlapping without their knowledge, and it's now coming together, albeit very slowly. Was I the only one missing out on the knowledge that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is just kind of a Daredevil ripoff? Daredevil fights the Hand, the Turtles fight the Foot. I mean, it's right there.
Wait, what?
The next episode immediately sees us back, sat with Alexandra, once again using her rage to showcase the power of the Hand. It gives a real insight into how she's experienced death and not willing to go back there, despite the fact that now she's faced with it on the horizon, except now she's not got any way out. I think we do spend too much time kind of talking about this. It overlays this point quite a lot. It works for Alexandra's motivation, but I do think we just spend too much time looking at how the other members of the Hand don't trust Alexandra's judgment, her usage of Elektra, Like, the fact that she's speeding everything up because she doesn't want to die, that works for her, but it is used as a point of conflict for the Hand a bit too much, and we just spend a bit too much time them talking about that. It's cool that the antagonists of the series have influence way above the ground level pay grade of the Defenders that we've seen. That's why Matt has the reaction that he does. He feels out of his depth, and they all kind of are on their own. Unfortunately, I don't think it ever really makes great use of that in terms of plot and narratively, but it does challenge the characters' morals in their approach to how they deal with things, and that I like a lot. The partnership between Matt and Jess is a lot of fun.
If you grab me like that again, I'll punch you so hard you see.
They're immediately suspicious of each other and kind of fed up with each other's attitude, but at the same time, kind of can't help but get on. Jess is able to outsmart Matt's pathing, and her reaction to a blind man doing insane parkour is priceless. Kristen Ritter is so perfect as Jessica Jones. Luke introduces a new side of the argument to Danny, almost using one of his major flaws throughout his first season, in how he just goes at everything head on, tackles everything the same way, punch first and think later. And it got really infuriating in Iron Fist Season 1, and again here. But Luke actually confronts him with that, and I like how the writers here almost make use of some of the writers' flaws from Iron Fist. Not totally, he's not great in this season, but he's better, and I think that is tackled in Iron Fist Season 2 quite well. And obviously Luke, being a bit more of a well-established character realistically from his first season, he operates on a much more emotional level, on a one-to-one with people. He cares deeply about Harlem and the city and the people in it. Danny will often view things as very simply black and white, but Luke is the opposite of that. He knows how complicated things are, and not everything can be solved with throwing hands. And we see that as we go through this episode. Cole ended up in prison. Luke was unable to kind of help in any way because Cole didn't really let him in, and so Luke visits Cole's mother as Cole requested, and while he's there, she gets a call saying that he's been killed in prison. And it's a really upsetting scene, but it showcases the personal level that Luke operates on, and also showcases how widespread and determined the Hand are to keep their secrecy. This episode culminates in a hallway fight scene, a staple and iconic aspect of all of these shows, and yeah, it's brilliant. I can't really fault it. Matt confronting Jess as she kind of dives in head first, but him knowing the danger of that, tries to kind of help her out of the situation. But Matt hits gunshots, so he parkours his way up while Jess just takes a lift, and they end up there at the same time. It's a lot of fun. I love their back and forth. Danny took Luke's advice and realized that he has other ways to tackle his issues, so he goes in as Danny Rand as opposed to the Iron Fist, but kind of realizes the Hand want the Iron Fist for some unknown reason, so it does lead to fisticuffs, and that's where Luke comes in, smashing through the door. The sequence is just brilliant, utilizing all of the different powers individually and together really well, and after a few waves, Elektra appears. And there's a lot of great exchanges in this fight sequence, and it's just cinema. It is, I'm afraid. It's brilliant. But now feels like a perfect time to talk about Elektra. I understand her inclusion in correlation to Matt's arc. I mean, she is the more toxic and self-harmful side of Matt, his more toxic qualities. And so I get that she's meant to be a complicated character and we're not meant to necessarily root for her, but I do still think she's too unlikable. Now, in full fair play to this show, there is definitely an attempt at making her more relatable. I mean, similarly to Matt, she didn't ask for all this. She didn't ask to be brought back, but that all mixed with being raised by Stick as well. That's why she slips more into the anti-hero category, with Matt believing that he can be her savior. But I think the execution is still a mixed bag. I just don't think it gets the balance right, and this kind of applies to Daredevil Season 2 as well. I think the performance is great, and I think she's threatening as well as emotional at times, and I think there are great ideas. Elektra is such a difficult character to translate because she kind of serves to make everything much more difficult for Matt. And I know there's arcs in the comics that expand on her in very interesting ways, and I'm definitely keen to give those a read, but I've never really seen that translated from page, even the Ben Affleck movie. Episode 4 takes place entirely in this Chinese restaurant. A beautiful colour palette is used here, kind of showing every different hero. Red for Daredevil, green for Iron Fist, blues and purples for Jessica Jones, and obviously yellows for Luke. All kind of having their individual placements within the location, but also all coming together. It really represents all four worlds combining. And this is where we get to see the chemistry between the Defenders, and it truly highlights their differences. There are some incredibly funny moments throughout, as well as genuine caution, concern, and emotion. They're all there for different reasons individually, but have all become tangled together. Stick shows up to lay stuff out straight, and no one really gets it. Jessica decides to bail. The remaining three are hesitant to kind of talk at all, let anything on. And Stick gives us a load of exposition about the Chased, another group that fight against the Hand or Force. They're all dead now, and he's the only one left. It's fine, I guess it doesn't really add much other than Stick's backstory that I felt like we kind of knew. But with all this new information, they realise maybe their only chance is to work together, but no one's really keen for that, obviously, except for Danny. Alexandra shows up and she still has the aura that she is above a place like this. Chinese restaurant, face to face with the people that she believes she's better than and more deserving than. And we learned that the Hand are apparently behind such major world events such as Chernobyl and Pompeii, certifying their threat and capabilities. It's clear that the Hand are getting ready to attack, but that's when Elektra comes out and Jessica just destroys the front of the shop with a car, taking Elektra out. The Defenders theme is used incredibly effectively. John Pisano's musical talent is absurd. I love it. His work on Daredevil was of course peak as well, and I think it's just as good here. It's a really great climactic end to the episode, and so the Hand are kind of shocked a little bit, but the Defenders are still on the back foot, and Matt's emotional drive with Elektra prevents him from working with the team, and that leads them to losing Luke. He gets taken. Thankfully though, not too long after, Luke shows up with White Hat, their first semblance of hope really. But that being said, Matt obviously gets the blame for the loss of Luke and the danger that he put the rest of the team in by following his own instincts, which were wrong. We spent some more time with Alexandra and learn how she believes death is the single thing in this world holding humanity back. She reveals she had a daughter once, but she fails to see her own arrogance that by bringing Elektra back from the dead, she's committed this unnatural, morally skewed act in an attempt to conquer the natural world and continue Elektra's life, but not even as a person, as a weapon, totally dehumanizing her after death. So the Defenders bring White Hat to this abandoned theatre, and he plays mind games with all the heroes, playing on their doubts, inadequacies, and mistakes.
So cool.
I mean, it's kind of cool.
It's times like these that really show the levels between the time a show has compared to movies. As much as there are great character arcs in movies and franchises, of course there are, MCU included, I think almost the fact that the shows generally have lower budgets almost force them to look at that even more. Matt is my favourite hero in the MCU, and I think Karen Page is maybe my favourite character. My point being, everyone's issues in this show are a key part of their characters. They are incredibly flawed and often just straight up wrong. We have so much time to sit with their morals and their beliefs. It just has a far more interesting, investing and artistic approach to those ideas. Interestingly, Colleen actually disagrees with Danny teaming up with these guys. We all know she was the best part of Iron Fist, but she has her own vendetta against the Hand. Having Bakudo return as well presents her with the challenge of accepting help herself. And I like how this show handles the side characters as well. Colleen probably gets the most out of all of these side characters because she's with Danny pretty much every step of the way. Despite the team-up nature of this show, in many ways this is a season 2.5 of Daredevil in terms of character arc and tone. With Daredevil we get a more gothic approach to the third season as opposed to the grittiness, which is still there in elements, don't get me wrong. But I think this show is the definitive fall of Daredevil and Matt Murdock. He tried to sort his life out, but almost did it too much. The whole thing with Matt, what he wants is that balance, but by completely eliminating Daredevil, he swung way too much the other way, and was Matt in unhealthy ways, unhappy. And so due to that, it leaves him much more open and susceptible to Elektra and the Hand, which bring him all the way back to Daredevil. And as much as I have issues with Elektra, the subtext of her not knowing who she is and being forced into this life that isn't hers does resonate with me, and I think mirrors Matt's arc very well in drawing those two together. The action continues to be great as well, with the Hand going after their friends, namely Jess's friend Trish, and as Jess goes to help, Matt shows up, foreshadowed by the red lighting mixed in with the blues, and we get to see the costume, and I really like this costume, to be fair. I like seeing this side of their dynamic. We see their difference in fighting styles, why Jess can't really take on a fast-moving ninja. You've also obviously got the stakes of protecting Trish in this scene. Episode 6 with Alexandra playing a record that has began looping. Really poetic in parallel to how she's finally reached the end of her cycle, foreshadowing her fate later in this specific episode. With White Hat tied up with the Defenders, they're trying to find out why they want Danny, because they want him alive. They refuse to just kill him. He's essential to their plan in some form. So they all decide it's best to keep him isolated, but obviously, Danny being Danny, he doesn't like this and wants to be a part of the fight. I really like this sequence. Iron Fist versus the Defenders. I mean, you could argue that he should be able to take, like, Matt on alone, but I don't care. Danny is a bit of a dumbass, so I believe Matt would clobber him. Them going hand to hand is great, and Jess using her strength in attempts just to kind of shut him up, before he finally uses the fist on Luke, which causes a shockwave, them all flying in a great climax to the brawl, but it feels like they're getting more and more desperate. This is what the Hand want. It's better for them. Alexandra said herself, the more connections, the easier it will be to break them. They're breaking themselves. Matt and Jess go to visit a woman who came to Jessica for help earlier in the show. That's the case that she was following and how she got tangled into everything. Her husband disappeared, and their belief that he was involved in this conspiracy all being led to Midland Circle, where the climax of episode 3 happened. I like this as it shows the grounded levels and personal effects this absurd larger-than-life plot continues going down. And we don't lose sight of that throughout the show, which I really like. Jessica attempts to comfort the daughter whilst talking about Matt's father, kind of showing that, obviously, she did her research, and it builds their relationship a lot. These two have an inherent understanding of each other, and neither of them have really felt in their own lives for some time. Whilst they're there, they find plans for the building, where it becomes apparent that the father they're investigating was planning to actually blow it up. Or more accurately, the plans revealed that the real intent was to destroy something beneath the building. That massive hole that we saw in Daredevil Season 2. Their talk as they leave follows Jessica saying how he took her case, so she also took his. Both of them were in places where they desperately needed someone with them. At that time, they found each other, and that's why I really hope to see these two come back in Season 2 of Born Again or a later project, because I think Cox and Ritter have brilliant chemistry, and I just love what they've done with the characters so far. Stick is with Luke and Danny. Predictably, Stick backstabs them. He gasses Luke and goes to kill Danny, so the Hand can't use him. But that's when Elektra shows back up and they fight, and my issue here is that I feel like Stick would just kill Danny even at the cost of his own life. I mean, we saw him cut off his own hand before, like, I don't think it's that out of the question. But anyway, Stick's killed, and as much as he is a negative force, generally speaking, his death is a true statement because he's got the emotional ties to Matt and Elektra, and he's been there from the start. Ah, I know why it's Chinese. After Iron Fist Season 1, they decided that they didn't want to do Blu-rays anymore. So now, we're all stuck with half a collection, and if it's not legal, I didn't buy it.
There it is again.
The only way out of here is together.
So the Hand have finally got the immortal Iron Fist, and I want to talk about him specifically for a second. As I mentioned, I quite like how in this show they take his poor character writing from his first season and use the other characters around him to build on that, and that's legitimately effective. However, he is still kind of just a total fucking idiot. The Iron Fist is meant to be the best when it comes to martial arts. Generally, throughout this show and his own show, Iron Fist is kind of entirely incompetent at everything he does.
Thundering dumbass.
Season 1 of Iron Fist starts with him being able to smoothly and swiftly move past security with ease. As much as it doesn't look great, and it feels way too smooth and light as if he's not actually putting any power behind his hits, at least the intent was there of that these guys aren't an issue for him. But then, later on in the season, he'd struggled to just take on one normal guy. I feel like they never got the power balance right, and he's just kind of not good at anything he does. And there's an infuriating moment in the finale involving him, which we'll get to. Elektra stabs Alexandra through the back. It creates a striking image, seeing the red flood her bright, clean white clothing. The record has looped and won't be going any further. It's over, despite her desperate attempts. That has almost led to her own downfall, and death has finally caught up to her. But it's also a pretty underwhelming ending for a character who has had such a strong presence. You've got Sigourney Weaver as your main antagonist, and I think there was so much more you could have had her do. She puts in a brilliant performance. and it never really feels like it gets paid off. But anyway, this leaves us with Elektra leading the Hand into the final 2 episodes. So we're at the home stretch, and the next episode opens with an old conversation between Stick and Elektra, which does a lot to kind of tie everything into Matt and really make it a Daredevil season 2.5. They say it pretty plainly, and they didn't really need to, but their goal is to kind of bring Matt to the darker half because he's gonna be such an asset to fight the Hand, and Elektra kind of wins that goal at the end of the show, which we'll discuss when we actually get there, but I think this does a lot to actually build Elektra as a character. Everywhere she's been before and after death, she has been at the will of someone else. They've controlled her life and her every decision and her morals. And so now is the first time having access to the substance that she'll be able to actually live on her own terms and forever. With everyone in the modern day incapacitated, the police arrive to take them in, and now they're all just kind of stuck because it's not like they can tell the police everything, because even to the good cops, they wouldn't believe it. It's just such an absurd plot. This does allow us to have some quiet time though, with other characters coming back, like Foggy, Karen, Claire, Misty and Trish. They're all here with the pressing situation of also needing to actually get to Danny to stop the Hand. The conversation between Elektra and the remaining members of the Hand is genuinely interesting. Despite the supernatural elements, this is a group at the top of the business ladder. Organisations all over the globe in different sides of business, but now we have someone who doesn't care about that in charge of every aspect of it. She only cares about herself. She doesn't care about being invisible. She doesn't care about anything like that. She doesn't care about the money. She is someone who purely wants to live for herself, and she's been allowed into a prime position to get that and do it forever on her own personal terms. Charlie Cox perfectly portrays a man who's just had his mentality destroyed. We're so lucky to be having him back, and hopefully gets a bit more mainstream praise with the higher budgets and larger incorporation into the MCU. But all 4 of these characters are out of their depth, and Matt has seen a bit more than the others along with Danny of what the Hand are capable of, and I think that's in such a large part as to what drives him when we re-find him in Daredevil season 3. And even though he's up against Fisk, it's kind of all of these events that lead him to where he ends up. We get a quick moment where Foggy brings Matt the Daredevil suit, and it's a great scene, focusing on their close bond and gives us a hint of the potential of what their relationship could be in a healthier state. It's an incredibly complicated relationship after everything they've been through, but in such an extreme circumstance, all Foggy wants is to look out for Matt and do what he can to at least keep himself somewhat together. It also gives him and Karen the hope that after this massive situation, Daredevil will finally put to bed. That is the opposite of what happened, but whatever. But it also adds a layer to Matt and Foggy's relationship in that he's not necessarily totally against Daredevil. He understands, and we saw this in their conversation at Josie's in episode 2. Foggy is understanding, but also worried, and for him, it's about kind of finding the balance of protecting his friend whilst also allowing him to be true to himself, because that's the thing. Half of Daredevil isn't just Matt trying to do the right thing, it is an addiction and at times a self-harm. The trio just decide to make a run for it, breaking their way out of the police station, and on the train, the scene of Jessica just stealing some dude's beer is brilliant. As they arrive, Matt changes, and him being the only one who wears a suit will never not be funny. I love how fed up Jess is, especially, just trying to find anything to make a joke out of. Christian Ritter's deadpan delivery is hilarious and will never get old. We get a fight with the 3 of them versus another 3 of the Hand as Underground, Elektra takes on Danny. Bakudo lights a fire to hide their escape as Misty decides to stalk the cops. And the episode ends with an admittedly baller as fuck shot of the dragon skeleton below New York. However, the wall to get to the skeleton is fucking stupid. I get that Elektra kind of forces Danny into breaking it, but nonetheless, he's well aware by this point that they want him and that they want him as a key to open something. And he's swinging so wildly, catching bits of the wall anyway, and when he swings for Elektra and she redirects him, I feel like he should be able to avoid this anyway, just as an expert fighter. But also on the basis of just don't use the Iron Fist. You don't have to use it, you're not forced to use it. And despite the very cool visual of having a dragon skeleton below New York City, it is kind of just absurd and feels like, is that it? Even for a show that is now been more brought into the MCU, feels a little bit far-fetched that New York is built upon dragon bones. So we reached the finale, 8 episodes bringing the culmination of 2 seasons of Daredevil, 1 of Jessica Jones, Iron Fist and Luke Cage, entering the phase 2 of Marvel's Defenders saga. that sadly got brutally killed anyway. Weirdly, I don't have loads to say about the finale. The opening establishes how grave the situation really is, and we have our hero stuck with the dilemma of continuing what the father in Jessica's case started by destroying this building, therefore destroying the dragon bones. That would stop the hand from using them to avoid death, and it's a really bold plot, and I like that it all ties into these characters' care for the city. It's intertwined very well. And something I really like about this is how we see in all the Avengers movies the sheer destruction, and you don't really give it a second thought when skyscrapers are falling, but for these guys, leveling a whole ass skyscraper is a big deal. They're all incredibly hesitant, Luke in particular, but they're convinced to come round and go through with it. So Claire and Colleen are sent to place the bombs while the other three head to retrieve Danny from the Hand. They look for an entrance and Matt finds a hollow space in the wall, so they open it up and find a shoddy elevator that would take them down the hole that was initially set up in season 2 of Daredevil. In that show, we didn't realise why they were digging the hole, and now we figured out that it's because they were after these dragon bones. And yeah, the fact that New York has been kept up by dragon bones is a choice. So I want to take a minute to talk about the overall plot of the show, because it's probably the worst part. I've stated my issues with Elektra and the pacing. I think this is just a really underwhelming plot to put these characters in though, at the end of the day. It aims for the big event feeling and at times does put it off, but at other times feels really flat. It leans too much into the mystical elements of what has been shown in these shows. I think it was a fatal mistake having the villains of the team-up show, the Defenders, be the Hand. It kind of makes sense for Daredevil and Iron Fist. I get they're Iron Fist's main rivals and a massive one of Daredevil, but for Luke and Jess, as fun as it is to see them involved in something that they kind of just don't believe in and thrown into the deep end of this mystical world, and it can be fun to see their reactions, I just think it leans way too hard into the dragon bone supernatural element. Arrow faced a similar issue when they started The Flash. How do you keep this gritty, grounded world when there are superpowered individuals so frequently in this universe that's supposed to be connected and all taking place together? How is just a normal guy supposed to take on any of that with a bow and arrow? I think Daredevil Season 1 handled the balance between Fisk and hints of the Hand very well. I think a potential option could have been keeping them more in the shadows, maybe keep them more as the street level organisations, or at least present them more in that way. It's clear that that's how the Hand have their reach, because they do have their hands in all these different businesses and pies. Obviously, human trafficking and drug dealing and all of that. Season 2 of Daredevil, when it focused on the Punisher, I couldn't fault it, but there is a distinct switch halfway through where they turn focus to the Hand, and it just isn't as interesting or effective. And this show keeps on that track for the most part, so I find the scenario kind of just generally underwhelming. So Matt, Jess and Luke get to the ground floor and we get a big action finale. I like the location, although it's not lit as interestingly as the rest of the series, which is a bit of a shame. I don't think it's the worst looking set piece by any means, and the choreography and stunt work is pretty good, except for the odd Iron Fist shot. The different character traits that show in their actual practical fighting is great, but when the show has had so many other engaging, visually pleasing locations where they've had their set pieces, this sadly just kind of naturally sticks out as a little lesser. But it's a lot of fun seeing these four take on an army after spending so much time divided and setting this up. We finally see the group dynamic that has been the highlight of the show work for the benefit of the city and all of their end goals, and it absolutely does feel earned. Likewise with Colleen and Misty. Colleen has the opportunity to get closure and revenge on Pacudo, but not before Misty takes a brutal slice through the hand in an effort to save Colleen, leading to her getting a robot hand in Luke Cage Season 2. After the four take out the first wave of the Hand, we get a stellar Wu-Tang Clan needle drop with Protect Your Neck, and the climax begins.
Light it up. Now.
Obviously there's a ticking time bomb aspect to this, which is easy, but it does work. After essentially winning and it's time for them to get out, Matt forces them out alone so he can stay behind with Elektra. This is the true turning point for Matt choosing Daredevil rather than Matt Murdock, hence the arc throughout Season 3. Choosing his own death as the devil as opposed to living as Matt Murdock. He tried to get through to Elektra as they fight despite her stubbornness, but by the end, Matt accepts the choice he's made. He embraces darker half all the way, in contrast to how far into the lighter half he was at the start of this show. He has chosen to die with Elektra rather than returning to his life as a lawyer. It's an emotional ending, with Danny promising to continue Matt's wishes to protect the city. Foggy and Karen obviously more affected than anyone, as Midland Circle collapses down on Matt and Elektra. Final scene with Luke and Jess is really nice, as well as the visual of Danny watching over the city, and the final frame is a recreation from an iconic panel from Daredevil's Born Again comic, hinting at what's to come in Season 3. Overall, this show is a real roller coaster. Having a post-credit Punisher trailer was awesome as well at the time. I look at this series and I just feel bad that it didn't get another go. Maybe it would have been remembered more fondly with a second season. And maybe I'm wrong in that, maybe a season 2 would have been worse. I don't really know if there were many plans to take this specific series further. This corner of the MCU is my favourite thing that's come out of the MCU. Daredevil, to be more specific. The plot and antagonists are the biggest issues in this season, for sure, but also it easily could have been much worse. When it comes to plot, certain elements of The Hand, it's just perfectly serviceable as opposed to good. But I think having The Hand as the villain was a big kind of mistake, if I'm honest. I think even a character like Muse would have worked well, even though he was only kind of created around the time when this show came out, so that probably wouldn't have been possible. But just for a bit of an example. Also, Nobu, and I'm aware that he was initially planned to have a bigger role, and I think maybe even play Alexandra's role, but the infamous Ike Perlmutter and Jeff Loeb stated that no one would be interested in seeing more of the Asian characters. I think their involvement has definitely hindered the legacy of how these shows are perceived, and that's a real shame. I mean, that's why this photo just makes this noise. I've not edited this. This photo just makes this noise. I can't do anything about it. I'm tapping and it's not working. Despite the lackluster plot, I think what makes this show so good, and why I would still take it over a lot of the MCU movies, is the character work. It says a lot that I am willing to bear with some of the more lackluster elements to see how it affects the characters anyway, to see how the characters affect each other. All of their reactions to this larger-than-life threat, and being forced together where their ideologies between each other are challenged at times. The arcs they go on follow directly and feel in character for them all, and they all progress in different ways, and they all grow naturally from meeting each other, and I think that's what I love about this show, the fact that that's the core, and it doesn't hide that. And hand in hand with that, the presentation is just stellar. I think this show looks better in every way as opposed to most MCU projects. S.J. Clarkson and all the other directors did an incredible job using colour and camera work to tell the story. Again, more so of the characters. That's what this show cares about, and I think that's where it nails it. I could spend another 3 episodes listening to these 4 talk around a table in a restaurant. We get different fighting styles all combining. Every shot has real intent, whether it's to tell us something layered about a character, or hint at something about to happen in the story, or to just provide extra emphasis on the events we're watching in the moment. It is just presented in an incredible way. And just for me, and I know this is a hot take, I think I do prefer the Defenders to all 4 Avengers films. And that's a wild statement, and you can't really compare them, realistically. They're so different in tone, in format. You know, this was a 8-episode limited series. The Avengers movies are 4 big blockbusters leading to a universe-ending threat. Like, they're not comparable, but on an engagement and investment level, I am with this show, and hey, I'm gonna get hell for that. But that's alright. If you've stuck around this long in the video, thank you so much, and I hope that you have enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the Defenders and the entire saga, and if you want to see them come back, because we all know it should have been them in the bar at the end of Born Again.